Rick would basically say to everybody in the room, y'all better freaking figure it out.
There is a warning sign inside Hendrick Motorsports that only the people who have worked there can recognize. It is not shouting, it is not a press release, it is Rick Hendrick sitting down in a competition meeting and being the first person to talk. Dale Earnhardt Jr. spent a decade driving for this team, and he just revealed what that moment really means and why it might be happening right now. Because heading into the biggest stretch of the 2026 season, something is not adding up at the most successful organization in the NASCAR Cup Series. 4 cars, one of the greatest dynasties the sport has ever seen, and a resume that looks nothing like the Hendrick Motorsports fans have come to expect. Chase Elliott has 2 wins on the board, one at Martinsville Speedway and one at Texas Motor Speedway. That is it. That is the highlight reel for a 4-car super team. And according to Dale Earnhardt Jr., when the results look like this, the atmosphere inside that building changes in a very specific way. So let us start with the situation itself, because the numbers tell a story that is difficult to ignore. Kyle Larson, the reigning NASCAR Cup Series champion, is riding a 39-race winless streak. Think about that. This is a driver who entered 2026 on a 5-season streak of at least 3 victories per year, and now he has not won in over a year. His most recent points race at Watkins Glen International ended with a 23rd place finish, marking a new low point for the struggling organization. His average finish of 17.3 is his worst since 2015, and it sits a series worst 8 positions below his average starting position. Many observers trace the slide back to his 2025 Indianapolis 500 and Coca-Cola 600 double attempt and the wreck at Indianapolis that came with it. Larson is second in the series in laps led, but the majority of those laps came at Bristol Motor Speedway, which inflates on a season that has otherwise lacked front-running speed. Then there is William Byron. 1 year ago, he won the regular season championship and reached the championship 4. Today, he sits 12th in the standings, only 32 points above the cut line, and it is a fight to crack the top 10 every single week. His average starting position and finishing position are his worst since 2020. Here's the statistic that stings the most. William Byron has led fewer laps than Corey Heim, a driver who has made 3 starts all year in a part-time, non-chartered 4th Toyota for 23 X1 Racing. A full-time championship contender in elite equipment outpaced in laps led by a part-timer. Alex Bowman suffered a bout of vertigo earlier this year and missed 4 races, but even accounting for that, he has not been competitive consistently either. He has posted recent back-to-back third-place finishes, yet his points per race average for the year is only good for 28th in the series. Even if he had run all the races he missed at that same average, he would still be 93 points below the cut line. The lone bright spot has been Chase Elliott, who has won 2 races earlier than he had ever managed in any of his first 10 seasons in the series. He sits comfortably inside the top 6 in the standings. But even his success comes with an asterisk. His win at Martinsville Speedway came down to pure strategy after he did not score a single stage point that day. Crew chief Alan Gustafson made a gutsy 2-stop call in the final stage to steal the race from Denny Hamlin, who led 292 of the 400 laps. It was a brilliant victory, but it was not a victory built on raw speed. As Elliott himself put it after that race, "I know we still have a lot of room for improvement, don't get me wrong, but great way to kind of cap off this first stretch." Now zoom out and the picture gets even more uncomfortable. Toyota is dominating with Tyler Reddick already sitting on 5 wins. Team Penske has passed Hendrick Motorsports in victories. And here's the part that has fans genuinely alarmed. Trackhouse Racing and Spire Motorsports, the satellite partner of Hendrick Motorsports, have the same number of wins as the flagship organization itself. With Carson Hocevar and Daniel Suarez sitting 7th and 9th in the purely results-based standings, it is not a stretch to suggest that Spire Motorsports currently finds itself as the sport's top Chevrolet team. That is a team with 1 total win over the past 6.5 years. And if you dig even deeper, the numbers get worse. Take away stage points, and Kyle Larson is only 13th in the standings, just 22 points inside the top 16, sitting behind 3 Chevrolet drivers outside his own team. RFK Racing driver Ryan Preece has not finished higher than 8th all year, and he is still 5 positions higher than Larson in that category. The standings are propping up a performance level that simply is not there. So what is causing all of this? The answer starts with the race car itself. For 2026, Chevrolet introduced an updated version of the Camaro's L1, adopting characteristics of the manufacturer's newly released carbon performance package. The changes include a larger hood power dome, a revised front grille, and more pronounced rocker panels along the side of the car. Every Chevrolet team on the grid received these updates, and Hendrick Motorsports has openly admitted it is still struggling to adapt. Team President Jeff Andrews acknowledged the adjustment period earlier this season, saying there is still a lot of work left to do. The core problem is balance. The cars fade over long runs as the tires wear, which is the difference between contending for 400 miles and falling backward the moment the grip goes away. There is a historical echo here that should not be overlooked. The last time Chevrolet introduced a new car body was 2018, and that season produced what was, until now, the slowest start in recent Hendrick Motorsports history. That year, only Chase Elliott won races, accounting for all three of the team's victories. Alex Bowman did not get his first win until 2019, and William Byron did not win until 2020. If 2026 follows the same script, the recovery could take far longer than one season. And there is a layer of irony sitting on top of all of it, because back in November of 2025, Rick Hendrick publicly said he was excited about the redesigned Chevrolet body for 2026. The thing he was excited about has become the thing his organization cannot solve, and which brings us to the centerpiece of this entire story. What actually happens inside Hendrick Motorsports when the performance drops this far? Dale Earnhardt Jr. answered that question on the latest episode of the Dale Jr. Download podcast, and his answer pulls back a curtain that fans almost never get to see behind. First, understand why his words carry so much weight. Dale Earnhardt Jr. spent a decade driving for Rick Hendrick. His company, JR Motorsports, remains a partner of Hendrick Motorsports to this day. He knows the internal culture of that building better than almost anyone outside the shop. And when he was asked about his concern level for the organization, his answer was direct. "I've been with HMS when they sort of get into these ruts or these little phases," said Earnhardt. "I'm not concerned, because what happens is they'll have a competition meeting, which they'll have one this week. They'll have one every week. Those weekly competition meetings are where everything changes. Rick Hendrick attends many of them, and now Jeff Gordon, in his role as vice chairman, carries weight in that room as well. And when the results are not there, Dale Earnhardt Jr. says the entire tone of those meetings transforms. But man, when they're not doing what they want to be doing, those meetings will get really fucking serious, and Rick would basically say to everybody in the room, y'all better freaking figure it out." Then came the line that defines this entire story. "It's pretty damn serious. Rick rarely ever gets stern, but when he does, it gets your attention because you don't see it often, and you know that he means fix it or else, or there's going to be some consequences." Fix it or else, that is the message, not delivered through anger, not delivered through shouting, but delivered through a man who almost never raises his voice, choosing this exact moment to do it. And according to Dale Earnhardt Jr., there is one specific tell that lets everyone in the building know the boss has seen enough. And when things weren't good enough, he was the first one to talk. When you go into the competition meeting and Rick talked first, you knew talking about last week's race wasn't the most fucking important thing on the table that day. That is the warning sign. When Rick Hendrick speaks first, last weekend is no longer the subject. Solutions are the only subject. The conversation shifts entirely to finding answers, and fixing the problem becomes the only thing on everyone's mind. And what happens after that meeting ends might be the most fascinating part of the entire revelation, because Dale Earnhardt Jr. described a chain reaction that spreads through every department of the company. "When everybody hears that, they're all tasked with finding solutions," Earnhardt said. "They leave the room, they go off to their part of the business, and they dial up the freaking effort. The engine shop starts looking for more horsepower. The engineers dig deeper into the setup data. The air department searches for gains wherever it can find them. And then a culture kicks in that Dale Earnhardt Jr. described in remarkably vivid terms. And what happens is everybody wants to be the one that runs back to Rick with the token, 'Look what I found. We worked hard and we got this.' They want to go, 'Hey, you said work. We worked. We found 3 horsepower. We're taking some badass shit to the next race.' Everybody wants to be the person who hands Rick Hendrick the fix. That is not panic. That is structure. That is an organization using urgency as fuel instead of letting it become fear. And when everybody's doing that and everybody brings a little bit of something back to the table, you go to the racetrack and you see it, you see the results start happening. Dale Earnhardt Jr. also added a wrinkle about the future of that leadership dynamic, pointing to Jeff Gordon. They'll figure it out, and they might figure it out this year. It might be next year, whatever. But Jeff Gordon, when I think about his personality, I feel like he could be convincing as well. He then finished the thought with a line that says everything about the four-time champion's presence. I wouldn't want to get on Jeff Gordon's bad side either. Now, if this all sounds theoretical, it is not. There is a precedent, and it is extremely recent. Go back to 2025. Hendrick Motorsports went through one of its toughest mid-season slumps in recent memory, and the doubts sounded exactly like the doubts you are hearing today. The organization responded by reshuffling personnel, reorganizing its pit crews, and leaning on its organizational depth to identify weaknesses and address them. Performance steadily improved as the season progressed. And how did that season end? With Kyle Larson and the number 5 team hoisting the NASCAR Cup Series championship trophy at Phoenix Raceway, defeating a pair of Toyota drivers from Joe Gibbs Racing along with his own teammate William Byron. This is not blind hope. This is a documented blueprint that worked 12 months ago. But here's where honesty matters, because this approach carries real risk and it only works under specific conditions. The first risk is diagnostic. This strategy only works if the diagnosis is correct. If Hendrick Motorsports has genuinely misjudged how to set up cars for this new Chevrolet package, throwing more resources at the wrong problem will not fix anything. It will just burn time they do not have before the chase field gets locked in. The second risk is human. When an owner with Rick Hendrick's reputation walks in and sets that tone, it can absolutely light a fire, but it can also tighten shoulders. Crew chiefs and engineers under that kind of pressure sometimes overcorrect, chasing changes that look good on paper but throw off the balance. Drivers have spent all year building. The third risk is the format itself. The 2026 season brought back the chase format used from 2004 to 2013, where the top 16 drivers and points make the postseason and the champion is decided across the final 10 races. There is no win and you are in lifeline anymore. Winning now pays 55 points, but consistency across 10 races decides everything. And a team fighting balance issues for 400 miles at a time is exposed by exactly that kind of format. Dale Earnhardt Jr. laid out the path forward for the drivers themselves, and he was blunt about who is still in the fight. I don't know that Byron is in a position to even worry about a championship this year, Earnhardt said. I think that they just need to get better. For the two contenders, his advice was about survival, but Chase and Larson, they are in a position to think championship. They just need to be careful over the next handful of weeks to not have that, you talked about that one bad race. And then he summarized the entire assignment in one sentence. They just don't need to have that one bad race. They need to get what they can get while the company's trying to find more speed. Just don't stub your toe and wait. So where does this go from here? Two paths. Best case scenario, Hendrick Motorsports does exactly what it did in 2025. The internal urgency Rick Hendrick creates pushes the competition department into overdrive. They solve the balance issues with the new Chevrolet package, and Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, or one of their teammates rides that momentum into a serious championship run. History repeats itself, and this whole storyline becomes another chapter in the Hendrick Motorsports comeback legend. Worst case scenario, the adjustments come too late. The chase format is brutal and unforgiving, and if these cars are still fighting balance issues once the playoff races start, there may not be enough time left to fix it on the fly. A four-car powerhouse could find itself watching the championship battle from the outside for the first time in years. The fan base is already split right down the middle. One side is pointing straight at the four-car results and asking a fair question. If this is one of the most talented rosters in the garage, why does it look so ordinary right now? The other side is doing what Hendrick Motorsports loyalists as Hawaii Oilers have done for years, trusting the process and pointing to 2025 as proof that this organization has been here before and has the blueprint to climb out of it. So here's the real question heading into the chase. Is Rick Hendrick's quiet pressure exactly what this organization needs to turn its season around, or is this finally the year the cracks are too deep to patch in time? Best case or worst case, drop your prediction in the comments below. And if you want the real breakdowns before anyone else in NASCAR media catches up, make sure you are subscribed, because next time we are digging into the growing tension between Chevrolet and Hendrick Motorsports and why some veterans believe the manufacturer itself is quietly robbing this team of Cup Series glory.